Good evening. My name's David Hambleton, and I chair the Boundary Review Board for Snohomish County. I will be conducting tonight's hearing. With me this evening are my Vice Chair, Nicholas Jensen, and then board members Grace Kane, Catherine Ness, and Allison Singh. Decorum. Before we begin this meeting or this hearing, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to share with you. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. As such, we will maintain some modicum of decorum throughout the session. Please turn off your cell phones, electronic devices, and anything else that may disturb the proceedings. This hearing is taking place in person, streaming live via Zoom, and is being recorded. The Zoom chat feature is disabled. Participants may report technical difficulties to the clerk via email at brb@snoco.org. We ask everyone to remain silent while board members are listening to tonight's testimony. You may hear comments or questions that you do not align with your personal beliefs or opinions. Please refrain from indicating your dissatisfaction or support for what is being voiced. It is very important that the board hear what is being said. The purpose of tonight's proceeding is to hear from all interested parties while giving board members an opportunity to ask questions and to ask for clarification of the material being presented tonight and what has been given to the board. Anyone wishing to testify must sign in on the roster provided by the clerk, and it was by the entrance back here. And if you are appearing on Zoom, please raise your hand using the raise hand Zoom feature on your window. Alternatively, you may email the clerk at brb@snoco.org. If there is any disruption in tonight's proceedings, such as waving signs or efforts to distract the board members from the testimony being given, that person will be asked to leave the room. Hearing introduction. The public hearing this evening is on BRB case. And we have a housekeeping item that I was just reminded of. The restrooms are located by the main bank of elevators near the entrance to the building. The men's restroom is currently closed. If someone needs to use a men's restroom, please let one of the clerks know, and we will make other arrangements for you. Timing's everything, I guess. Okay. Hearing introduction. The public hearing this evening is on BRB case 2025-06, the 240-acre North Lake annexation proposed by the city of Snohomish. This hearing has been advertised as required by law through the publication of a legal notice in the Tribune newspaper. Notices of the hearing were also posted pursuant to RCW 36.93.160 in the subject area for at least 5 days prior to the hearing. For purposes of the record, today is Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. The board's jurisdiction was invoked pursuant to RCW 36.93.100, and an interlocal agreement annexation submitted by the city of Snohomish is being considered. The board will hear the issues and receive testimony this evening. Depending on the status of the hearing at 9 p.m. or at the close of testimony, whichever occurs sooner, the board may take one of the following actions. 1, testimony is not concluded by 9 p.m. The board will recess and continue the public meeting tomorrow evening, January 21st, 2026 at 6 p.m. in this room. If testimony is concluded, the board may then deliberate and render an oral decision tonight, or will reconvene again at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, January 21st, 2026, to deliberate and come to a decision. The board will adopt its written decision on Thursday, January 29th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Upon adoption of our written decision, there is a 30-day appeal period. Any appeal can be filed with the Supreme Court, and that January 29th meeting will be in this room also. Yes, okay, thank you. What? Oh, can be filed with the Superior Court, okay. Factors and objectives. By state statute, the board may only consider the factors and objectives from the revised Code of Washington in making its decision. Where possible, we ask that you confine your testimony this evening to those relevant factors and objectives under RCW 36.93.170 and 36.93.180. A list of the factors and objectives is available on the table in the foyer with the agendas. Testimony guidelines and exhibits. The hearing will proceed as noted on the agenda, and that's, oh, okay, it was up on the wall a little bit ago, but people were handed a copy also, weren't they? Yes, okay. Only the board may ask questions of the speakers. The time limit on testimony shall not include any time required for the board to ask questions and answers given to those questions. We ask speakers not to repeat what was stated by a previous speaker. If your testimony is duplicative, please indicate if you concur and offer anything new that you'd like the board to consider. If you have written testimony, please submit that to the clerk when you testify so it can be included in the record. If you have any exhibits, please submit them to the clerk with labeling. Note the board must retain all exhibits until a decision is filed and the appeal period of 30 days has ended. Before we begin, let's see a show of hands of the attendees who want to testify tonight. Okay, great. Gives us an idea then. Good. For anyone present Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. Okay, we have 2 people have raised their hands via Zoom. Okay. Conflict of interest ex parte communication. At this time, are there any board members who have a conflict of interest, such as a personal interest or professional involvement, which may affect your ability or the perception of your ability to fairly hear the proposal? If anyone responds, yes. So anybody on the board? Okay. So I have something I want to read into the record here. January 13th, 2026. Snohomish County Boundary Review Board, BRB file 2025-06. It's the city of Snohomish, the North Lake annexation. Disclosure of a potential conflict of interest. I, David W. Hambleton, am the chair of the Snohomish County Boundary Review Board, which is conducting a public hearing on the subject proposal, BRB 2025-06, City of Snohomish, North Lake annexation. Documentation submitted to the board by the city of Snohomish identifies Emily Gildner as the attorney for the city of Snohomish. I am also the chair of the Snohomish County Public Facilities District, and Emily Gildner was recently contracted as the district's attorney. This gives rise to the possibility of an apparent potential conflict of interest. In my opinion, Ms. Gildner, representing the city of Snohomish, which may appear before the board, and the Snohomish County Public Facilities District, of which I am chair, does not constitute a conflict of interest for me. So I will participate fully in the city of Snohomish North Lake annexation proposal before the Boundary Review Board. And then we go on to ex parte communications. Are there any board members who've had ex parte communications with any interested party while this matter has been before us? Okay.
No.
Okay. All no's. If anyone in the audience or the presenters have an objection, please register your challenge now so the affected board member can consider the stated objection to determine whether this is valid and could affect their ability to make a fair or impartial decision before the matter of the board. Please direct your comments to the board. Okay, I see nobody coming forward. Did anybody online say no? Okay. So thank you. We'll go ahead and move on. So we don't have any rejects. We'll skip that. Okay. Oath. At this time, I would like everyone who plans to testify or thinks that they may be called to testify to please stand and be sworn in by the clerk.
Please raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay, so now we're going to get into our presentations and testimony, and the first presenter will be the initiator, which is the city of Snohomish. And we have time limits set for people here, and that comes right out of our documents we operate under. And so the city of Snohomish.
Thank you. My name is Brooke Idem, City of Snohomish Planning and Development Services Director. I'm here this evening speaking on behalf of the city in support of the North Lake annexation. The North Lake annexation was processed using the interlocal agreement annexation method passed by the Snohomish's annexation strategy was identified in a subareas analysis that was initiated in 2021 and the comprehensive planning process that began in 2022. A portion of the North Lake urban growth area was then rezoned to accommodate more housing as part of the 2024 comprehensive plan periodic update. The city began annexation discussions with Snohomish County staff in January of 2025.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Could you please hold the microphone
a little closer. Yeah. Is that better?
Does that get it?
We'll know when he's-
Okay. And the slideshow, if you want to proceed to the next. So this is a map of the boundary. And the next slide. Okay. The northeastern boundary, which was kind of the area circled, was discussed for several months between city and county, and those negotiations concluded in April. And that was reflected in the maps and legal description submitted with the notice of intention. The city was engaging with the public throughout all of 2025. Some of those engagement materials were included in Exhibit E of the notice of intention. That NOI was submitted to the Boundary Review Board in October of 2025 after both agencies approved and executed the interlocal agreement. Next slide, please. A summary of the engagement efforts was provided in Exhibit E of the Notice of Intention. They're also kind of listed here. The city puts out a quarterly magazine to keep the community informed of civic activities and events. There was an article introducing the annexation that was included in the winter 2025 issue. A copy of that magazine was mailed to each household in the North Lake urban growth area with an introductory letter from the mayor in January of 2025. There was a city projects open house held in March that included a booth about the annexation. The city council then had their first briefing in April. City staff attended a board meeting of the Northridge Water Corporation to discuss the proposal and answer questions also in April. The Planning Commission discussed the annexation at their regular meetings in both May and June. All annexation area residents were invited through postcard mailing to a neighborhood barbecue that was held in June to meet city staff and other service providers like the police and fire departments and the garbage company. The city council passed a resolution with a notice of intent to annex in July. That same month, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and recommended the annexation to the city council. A second letter was sent from the mayor to all annexation area households on July 30th with information about the city council public hearing that was coming up. That was held on August 19th, where the interlocal agreement with Snohomish County was approved. Next slide, please.
And can you please pull the microphone closer to you to speak correctly?
Yes. The interlocal agreement annexation method, that is a lot better. Thank you. The interlocal agreement annexation method is fairly new to state law. It was passed by the Washington State Legislature in 2020 under Senate Bill 5522. The legislative intent is to make annexation more efficient and to avoid illogical boundaries or islands of unincorporated territory. This method requires additional public notice from both the city and the county. It requires notice to special purpose districts. It requires joint cooperation between city and county through the Interlocal Cooperation Act. And then additionally, under the law, the annexed land must meet certain minimum zoning standards. The North Lake annexation meets all of those requirements and went through all of those required steps. Next slide. The petition that was submitted to the Boundary Review Board in opposition of the annexation discusses a 60% boundary contiguity from RCW 35A 14460. The legal analysis of the interlocal agreement annexation method is that the 60% contiguity does not apply. RCW 35A 14296 subsection 1, which is excerpted on the slide there, says this method of annexation shall be an alternative method and is additional to all other methods provided for in this chapter. RCW 35A 14460 cited in the opposition petition where the 60% boundary contiguity rule comes from came into state law in 2003 under House Bill 1755. It is the island interlocal method, an alternative method of annexing islands of unincorporated territory, a different annexation method that does not apply to the subject annexation proposal. And I want to note really quickly, the city's comments that were submitted in advance of this hearing contain an incorrect RCW reference, an error. They reference 35A14-475. The correct reference is actually the one that's on the screen there, 35A14-296 subsection 1. But the main point here is that the ILA method is a separate and distinct process with no minimum boundary contiguity requirement. Next slide. The petition also discusses factual deficiencies in the notice of intention. One is the list of service providers on page 2 of the cover sheet, where the current water provider is noted as small water associations and the proposed provider is noted as City of Snohomish. I want to clarify here that the proposed provider column does not reflect the city's intention to take over any existing water association system or corporation. That would need to be at the request of the water corporation and would be a much larger discussion. It is intended to identify the capacity based on a potential future scenario at full build out. This doesn't mean that it will actually occur, but it's required for planning purposes. It means that should a development be proposed after annexation, the city has the capacity to handle those future water customers. The Northridge Water Corporation may continue to operate as they have been for as long as they would like to. It is development that triggers connection, and only when there's a utility main nearby. Next slide, please. The opponent's brief also discusses financial issues and mentions a lack of a financial analysis. Here, I'd like to clarify that a financial analysis was prepared for this annexation and has been publicly available since July. The Snohomish County property tax levy rate for the tax code area where most properties, including the Northridge properties, are located is about 35 cents higher per $1,000 of assessed value than the city's tax levy rate. The sales tax is higher in the city than it is in the county. However, as people are likely to continue their current shopping habits, this would really only apply for online shopping and home repair work. In those circumstances, the tax difference on a $50 purchase is 70 cents, on a $500 purchase is $7, and on a $5,000 purchase is $70, and so on. There are also some concerns about increased cost for water management after annexation that would affect residents. Operating permits for water systems are handled by the Department of Health Office of Drinking Water. This will not change, and there are no additional permits or licenses from the city that would increase those costs. This means that there will be no impact to residents' water bills. There's also a statement that public services aren't going to improve. In fact, public safety and first responder services will improve after annexation. As city residents, the area would benefit from the city's contract with the county sheriff, meaning that police will respond from the local precinct in Snohomish rather than here from Everett, a difference of about 6 miles. A letter was also submitted by Fire Chief Don Waller regarding improved services and responses from Fire District 4 as a result of their partnership with the city of Snohomish. Next slide. This annexation is consistent with all applicable policies, including state law, regional and countywide policies, and local comprehensive plan policies, both county and city. Next one. Annexation of unincorporated urban growth areas is one of the intentions of the Growth Management Act to ensure orderly growth. The North Lake Urban Growth Area has been designated for annexation to the city of Snohomish since the 1990s, when the county and cities within the county established boundaries for future urban expansion. As mentioned previously, the interlocal agreement annexation method lays out specific requirements and processes in RCW 35A14-296, and all of those have been met here. The interlocal agreement was approved by the Snohomish City Council on August 19th and the Snohomish County Council on September 24th. The Boundary Review Board's objectives were evaluated against the proposed annexation by staff in Exhibit F of the Notice of Intention. These objectives call for preservation of natural neighborhoods. That is going to be occurring here. No natural neighborhoods are going to be split apart. the use of physical boundaries and preservation of service areas. The annexation uses physical boundaries. It annexes the entire contiguous urban growth area. The prevention of irregular boundaries and adjusting impractical boundaries. By annexing the entire contiguous urban growth area, the boundary in that area becomes more regular. Discouraging multiple small cities, it definitely furthers that policy. Dissolving inactive special purpose districts, that one's not really applicable. Annexation of urban areas, it furthers that policy. And protecting agricultural and rural lands, that one's not really applicable. So all objectives were found to be supported by the proposal apart from those two that were not applicable to the subject annexation. Next slide, please. Puget Sound Regional Council is the regional planning authority for this area. They've adopted Vision 2050, regional growth strategy, and multi-county planning policies. There are several policies that encourage the provision and coordination of urban services and annexation of unincorporated lands to the adjacent city. The annexation area has been pre-designated to accommodate growth consistent with PSRC's regional growth strategy, and the city's long-range plans include this area. The proposed annexation was found to be consistent with all of those applicable regional planning policies. Next slide. The analysis of Snohomish County's comprehensive plan and countywide planning policies can be found in Exhibit F of the Notice of Intention. The comprehensive plan policies direct growth to urban areas to preserve open and rural lands, urban growth areas to have capacity to support growth, limit annexations to within UGA boundaries only, and call for coordination between agencies for the orderly transfer of services. Next slide. The countywide planning policies encourage interlocal agreements, mutual aid agreements, and coordination between agencies, public participation, and future planning within UGAs. The annexation supports applicable policies here. This annexation benefited from extensive community engagement, and necessary interlocal agreements and mutual aid agreements are in place for coordination and efficient transition of services. Next slide. North Lake was similarly found to be consistent with all of City of Snohomish's annexation policies. These direct the logical boundary expansions, larger annexations rather than smaller ones to conserve city resources, and regular boundaries. The City Council's adopted goals also provide guidance to implement the annexation policies by annexing this specific portion of the city's urban growth area. Next slide. In summary, the North Lake annexation was processed using the interlocal agreement annexation method codified in state law and RCW 35A14-296. This method is current law, and all requirements of the statute have been met. The annexation similarly meets the intent and the requirements of the Growth Management Act and the Boundary Review Board objectives. The city's financial analysis shows that the annexation will result in a benefit to the city and the residents, and it is consistent with all applicable regional and local policies and City Council goals. Services will improve upon annexation, and the city is planning for the future services as the area continues to grow over time. So thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
So then we'll move on to the petitioner, the opponent group, and Jesse Podol. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, would you give your name and address and also spell your last name?
Sure. My name is Jesse Podol, JESSEPODOLL, 5701 Northridge Drive, Snohomish. My name appears as the point of contact on the petition that invoked your jurisdiction. Please make no mistake, I'm also here on behalf of the residents who have no say in this annexation process from the very moment it started. I want to begin by acknowledging and respecting the board's quasi-judicial role and the structured process you're required to follow. This board's responsibility is to ensure that any decision made tonight is legally defensible and will withstand judicial review. As we intend to demonstrate, this annexation proposal cannot meet that standard on several fronts, and any approval would likely be overturned under judicial scrutiny. For that reason, the board has a duty to deny this annexation rather than allow it to proceed. I want to briefly outline what you will hear from me tonight. First, there are two mandatory statutory prerequisites that must be resolved before the board considers its discretionary objectives. Number one, whether the proposal satisfies the mandatory requirements of RCW 35A14460. And number two, whether the city's notice of intention complies with RCW 3693090. These are not flexible standards. They are statutory requirements that cannot be waived, modified, or overridden through the interlocal agreement. If the annexation fails either threshold, the board lacks the authority to proceed further. As noted in the pre-hearing brief submitted to this board, the proposal by the City of Snohomish fails both threshold requirements. I have provided clear documentation, maps, and citations supporting each point, and I will present them in an organized and efficient manner, focusing on each threshold issue. Then I'll move to the discretionary objectives of neighborhood preservation, logical service areas, coherent boundaries, and fiscal impacts. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your work in ensuring that annexation decisions meet statutory requirements and are lawful, orderly, and protective of the public interest. With that, I'll now move into the first threshold requirement. For this section, please refer to map 1 that was provided to the board. Additionally, please refer to City of Snohomish Resolution 1489, which the city approved July 1st, 2025, to initiate this proposed annexation. In this resolution, the city cites this annexation pursuant to General Chapter 35A.14. Please note that no specific subsection is listed in this entire document. As outlined in the petition, the city is now pursuing this annexation under RCW 35A.14.296 via an interlocal agreement method. While 296 provides a procedural mechanism for coordinating annexations within urban growth areas, it does not replace, override, or exempt an annexation from the substantive requirements of RCW 35A.14.460 or from oversight by the Boundary Review Board. This proposed annexation area lies entirely within the City of Snohomish's UGA, and RCW 35A.14.460 is the statute written specifically for UGA annexations undertaken through an interlocal agreement. It imposes 2 clear mandatory requirements. Number 1, the area must be inside the UGA, and number 2, at least 60% of its boundary must be contiguous with the annexing city. These requirements are not optional. You can't invoke 296 and ignore 460. Washington law requires that statutes on the same subject be read together and harmonized. A more specific statute, 460, controls over a more general one, 296. And a procedural statute cannot be used to bypass substantive limits. Those principles apply directly here. The city will argue that because 296 does not explicitly reference 460, that the 60% contiguity requirement does not apply, but the absence of a cross-reference is not an exemption. If it were, then any annexation conducted under 296 could ignore any statutory requirement not restated inside that section. In fact, the city's interpretation would also mean that annexations under 296 are exempt from going through this hearing process or meeting the objectives of RCW 3693, 170, and 180, as 296 does not directly reference this hearing process or those RCWs either. However, we all know this is untrue. It's why this board and this process exist. This illustrates exactly why the city's interpretation cannot stand. It would create a selective application of state law, allowing a city to avoid substantial requirements simply because they are not reprinted in the procedural statute it chose. That's not how Washington's rules of statutory construction operate, and it's not how annexation law functions. Professional guidance, such as the interpretations provided by the Municipal Research and Services Center, consistently note that RCW 35A.14.296 was intended to provide a procedural vehicle for coordinating annexations within UGAs, not to exempt them from requirements. In other words, RCW 35A.14.296 is like a roadmap for the process. It shows the route, but it does not remove the traffic laws along the way. Accordingly, RCW 35A.14.460 applies as a matter of law. As shown on map number 1 and hopefully verified by the board, this annexation is only 53% contiguous. Therefore, it fails the 60% requirement. The board's inquiry is over and the proposal may not proceed. I will now address the second threshold issue, the completeness and accuracy of the city's notice of intention under RCW 3693.090. The notice of intention is a document the board must rely on to determine statutory compliance. It must be accurate, verified, and complete at the time it is filed. As I will show, the NOI filed by the city, even though it's already been amended once after being filed, still does not meet this standard. To begin, on page number 2, a table in the NOI misrepresents current and proposed water service. It lists small water associations as current providers and the city of Snohomish as the proposed future provider. This is incorrect. The city has repeatedly stated it will not and cannot assume this privately owned water system. Listing the city as a future provider is a material misstatement directly affecting service area analysis. Next, on page 3, the NOI originally listed a deceased individual who passed away almost 9 years ago as a contact person for one of the small water systems listed. This demonstrates a lack of basic due diligence and shows the city never attempted to contact this water system at any time throughout this process. The city corrected this only after I notified the Boundary Review Board, who then informed the city. Because the NOI must be accurate at submission, later corrections do not fix this defect. This lack of due diligence calls into question the accuracy of any other information listed on the NOI. Additionally, also on page 3, a map depicted in the NOI includes inaccurate and inconsistent water service boundaries. Please refer to map number 2 provided to the board for comparison. You'll notice multiple parcels served by the Northridge Water Corporation were omitted entirely from the city's map. This inaccurate visual representation severely impacts the board's ability to evaluate service areas and boundary logic, as it shows the service area of Northridge Water Corporation significantly smaller than it is. Also, in Section 7, Objective 1 of RCW 3693-180, the NOI mentions the Northridge neighborhood specifically. It characterizes the ILA method as the last chance or, quote, only viable way to annex this neighborhood. This is a patently false statement, as there are several methods of annexation that exist under Washington state law, none of which have expirations or last chance implications. Labeling one method as the, quote, only viable way misrepresents the annexation laws themselves and improperly influences the board's understanding of legal options and creates urgency where there is none. Further, in Section B, City of Snohomish Comprehensive Plan, under Goal L9.3, the NOI states this annexation, quote, will avoid the creation of islands of unincorporated lands. On map 3 provided to the board, noted in red, you'll find this statement is wildly untrue. The proposed annexation creates an island of unincorporated land that is approximately 113 acres in size. For reference, this is nearly half the size of the total proposed annexation itself. Similarly, in Section 7, Objective 1 of RCW 3693-180, the NOI says Northridge is included in the annexation to avoid an island that would create service issues. However, Northridge has existed in this configuration for over 60 years. Not only can you not create something that already exists, but in those 60+ years, there have been no service issues noted. In that same section, under Goal L9.4, the NOI asserts that, quote, many area residents appear largely supportive of the annexation. This is simply untrue. The city provides no support for this claim, no survey results, no attendance metrics, no record of public statement of support. This statement is then directly contradicted later in the NOI and by firsthand accounts. In Objective 8, the NOI states some, quote, some residents of Northridge do not support this annexation. For reference, 41 of 44 households oppose it, or 93%, far more than some. Further, State Representative and County Council member Sam Lowe, who represents all 122 households in the proposed annexation area, went door to door and personally visited nearly half the homes, not just those in Northridge. Among all those homes, only 3 people expressed support for annexation and 3 were undecided. The overwhelming majority that he spoke with opposed it. If residents were truly largely supportive, why is this annexation not proceeded via the election or petition method in the past 30 years? Why was the ILA method ever needed? Public outreach, no matter how well done or robust, does not equate public support. Claiming that residents are largely supportive is demonstrably false. Using this unsupported statement in the NOI misrepresents resident sentiment to the board and could skew its review. 2 other errors have been brought to my attention after the pre-hearing brief was submitted. Number 1, the NOI claims that Northridge neighborhood represents, quote, less than 20% of the total annexation area. This is incorrect. By land area, Northridge is approximately 30% of the total annexation, and the petition, which circulated only in the Northridge neighborhood, collected 79 signatures. Again, 30% of the total population within the proposed annexation boundary. Number two, throughout this petition process, I've learned that there are at least 3 other small water systems in the annexation area that are not depicted or even mentioned by the city in their NOI. The NOI states and lists only 3 small water systems within the boundary. This is false. There are at least 6 and likely more. These are yet more examples of skewed or minimalized depictions of the affected area and the lack of complete data contained in the NOI. If there are this many errors easily identified, how can the board reasonably assume that other parts of the NOI are any more reliable? I want to be crystal clear. The notice of intention is not an opinion letter. It is an officially submitted document of data that contains verified and quantified statements of fact, using words such as most, many, largely, or some, without the data to back it up, allows for a wide range of interpretation, which is not the purpose of an NOI. As I've shown, these errors are not simply minor formatting or clerical issues. They collectively indicate that the NOI is not a reliable or verifiable document, and at best, it skews the board's view of this annexation. At worst, it shows a severe lack of due diligence and preparedness for this annexation by the city. This is another threshold requirement that is not met. Under RCW 3693-090, the board may not move forward to evaluate RCW 3693-170 and 180 unless the NOI is complete and accurate at the time of submittal. As stated in the petition, the petitioners have also provided an alternate boundary that removes the Northridge neighborhood. This alternate boundary is offered only for the board's consideration if it determines that annexation may proceed despite threshold failures. It's worth noting that the alternate boundary does not resolve the 60% contiguity deficiency, nor does it resolve the issues with the NOI, but it does materially improve nearly every one of the statutory objectives in RCW 3693-170 and 180. I will begin that discussion now. Objective 1 of RCW 3693-180, the preservation of natural neighborhoods and communities. Please refer to map number 2 and 3 provided to the board. Northridge is a long-established, cohesive neighborhood developed in the 1960s, 3 decades before the UGA was drawn and over 60 years before this annexation proposal in front of you today. It consists of 44 homes, 41 of which are represented in this petition opposing annexation. This demonstrates strong, consistent community opposition. The remainder of the annexation area is primarily underdeveloped or semi-rural parcels designated for future growth. Including Northridge would subsume a long-standing residential neighborhood into a growth-oriented boundary and would not preserve a natural neighborhood. The city's NOI claims Northridge was included, quote, to avoid illogical boundaries and islands, and that the interlocal agreement is the last chance to annex. These claims are misleading and reflect urgency, not careful planning to preserve a natural neighborhood or community. Northridge is a defined, stable community, not a new development, not a gap in the map, not an orphan pocket of parcels. Critically, annexing Northridge would isolate a single resident at the far edge and would require city services to travel nearly 2 miles through unincorporated Snohomish County. This is an illogical boundary that does not preserve a natural neighborhood and community. It fractures and divides it, directly contradicting the city's rationale. City outreach materials do not reflect the strong opposition expressed at meetings and events. The NOI claims that many residents appear largely supportive, but yet has no supporting survey data and is contradicted by the petition record itself and public opposition verified by a state legislator and county council member. Finally, longevity of a planning concept does not equate to foresight. In fact, one could argue that no action taken on a plan for over 30 years makes it a bad plan. For all these reasons, the proposed annexation fails Objective 1. It does not preserve a natural neighborhood, reflect community support, or respect cohesion of a long-established community. I will now turn to Objective 3 of RCW 3693-180, whether the proposed annexation reflects a logical service area under state law. Northridge already functions as a complete self-sufficient service community within Snohomish County. Northridge is served by an independent, privately owned water system, which has served residents reliably for decades. There have been no interruptions, no contamination issues, and no capacity concerns. Every home is on a functioning septic system, and the city has stated repeatedly that it does not intend to extend sewer service or assume responsibility for the water system if annexation occurs. In fact, they state they cannot take over the water system as it does not meet their requirements. County-managed services such as road maintenance, emergency response coordination, and waste collection have likewise provided dependable coverage for more than 70 years. There's no record of inadequate service or unmet need. The existing structure is sufficient and tailored to the neighborhood's geography, layout, and infrastructure. The city has provided no analysis showing that annexation would improve service delivery. There's no timeline, no infrastructure plan, no identified funding or for additional services. Instead, annexation would introduce new administrative layers, create service duplication, and increase resident costs without providing a measurable benefit. Further, during the City of Snohomish's public hearing to adopt this annexation, when referring to Northridge, the city stated they have no intentions of putting any services, quote, out there. Specific to this hearing, Snohomish County Fire District submitted a letter to the board describing coordination efforts with the City of Snohomish related to city-owned hydrants on city-owned water systems. A meeting with Chief Waller last week confirmed that those agreements do not apply to Northridge. We also confirmed that the fire district's letter identifies no service improvement or operational change to Northridge or the city that is dependent on this annexation. He further confirmed that fire protection services to Northridge are fully provided today and that no service deficiency exists. Additionally, it was confirmed that all emergency services for Northridge are and would continue to be provided through the same 911 dispatch system by the same districts with the same staffing, apparatus, and response protocols, regardless of annexation. The proposed boundary reflects jurisdictional expansion rather than operational or infrastructure-based rationale. It cuts across existing service networks and longstanding community lines. In fact, in this proposal, some neighbors on the same street would be served by the city, while others would be served by the county. As drawn, the proposed boundary does not foster a logical service area. Accordingly, annexation does not improve services, does not resolve any service deficiency, and does not establish a logical service area benefit under RCW 3693-180. The city has not demonstrated how annexation would improve or provide service to Northridge, and the record shows it will not. Annexation therefore fails Objective 3, which requires boundary changes to support efficient, logical service delivery and measurable service benefits. These unresolved service area deficiencies also lead directly into the next statutory objective, Objective 4, creation and preservation of logical boundaries. The proposed annexation does not meet this objective. While the city asserts that the boundary would regularize its northern limits, a simple look at Map 3 provided to the board will show this proposal achieves the opposite. The northern edge is no more consistent than the city's current boundary. In many areas, one side of a street is included while the other is excluded. In several locations, even adjacent homes on the same street are split by jurisdictions. This creates an arbitrary, fragmented pattern that cannot reasonably be described as logical. Northridge, at the northeast corner of the annexation, is a clear example. Its inclusion does not improve contiguity or simplify the city's edge. Instead, it stretches the city limits to incorporate an otherwise self-sufficient neighborhood, increasing irregularity rather than reducing it. Even more concerning, while the city claims this annexation is necessary in part to remove Northridge as an island, their proposal creates two islands, as noted in map number 3. First, a true island residence, a single home inside city limits, accessible only by traveling nearly 2 miles through unincorporated Snohomish County. Police, fire, garbage, and other city services would be required to cross county jurisdiction just to serve one single household. Second, an island of unincorporated Snohomish County encompassing over 110 plus acres, accessible only by traveling on a single city-owned road. For reference, this new island is nearly twice the size of Northridge. In other words, while attempting to remove a 67-acre island, this proposal creates a 110-acre island while also isolating a single residence into another island. This is the definition of illogical. And this outcome directly contradicts Objective 4, which aims to avoid isolated, inefficient, and illogical boundaries. Instead of achieving a coherent and functional boundary, the proposal adds administrative complications and creates confusion for residents, first responders, and service providers. For all those reasons, the proposed annexation fails Objective 4. It does not create or preserve logical boundaries and introduces new inconsistencies, islands, and inefficiencies. With boundaries addressed, the final topic before closing will be the fiscal impacts, known and unknown, on residents. The full financial impact of this annexation is largely unknown, which is greatly concerning, especially for residents on fixed incomes, which is a large portion of the Northridge neighborhood. Under RCW 3693-170 and 180, annexations must promote orderly growth, logical service provision, and financial responsibility. This proposal fails all three. Residents in Northridge will face higher taxes, new utility fees, and uncertain stormwater assessments, yet the city will provide no new services. The law requires that annexations demonstrate a public benefit relative to cost. Here, there are no measurable benefits to residents, only additional financial burden. That alone supports the conclusion this annexation does not satisfy statutory objectives and should be denied. No new services or improvements will be provided to Northridge. Emergency response, utility service, septic, and water systems remain as is. Yet sales tax would increase immediately from 7.9% as a county residents to 9.3% as city residents, and garbage and recycling rates would rise as residents would be forced to use the city contracted service. Stormwater fees are undefined. The city has not assessed existing drainage systems, prepared a maintenance plan, or explained how fees will be calculated and assessed. The Northridge Water Corporation has confirmed that annexation will increase operating costs, including an immediate 5.33% non-city owned utility tax, which will be passed directly on to homeowners. Beyond this, there are larger unknowns, unplanned infrastructure needs, future rate structures or increases, and mandatory utility connection fees when the city brings any within 200 feet. For residents relying on retirement income, Social Security, or disability benefits, even small, unexpected increases would jeopardize their ability to remain in their homes. The city's only real answer for how much this annexation will cost residents is more. And there's no plan on how the city will have a budget to cover its own costs. They have vaguely mentioned future discussions potentially being added to future budgets, but nothing is confirmed or even guaranteed to be approved. The city council has not discussed any budget for this annexation to extend services or even maintain what currently exists. This is concerning and incomplete and creates a cart before the horse scenario. Additionally, City Council and staff have previously discussed the use of a local improvement district tax to address infrastructure deficiencies in areas where no funding currently exists to maintain or improve city-owned streets and sidewalks. Because no budget has been identified for infrastructure maintenance in this annexation area, the potential of a lid tax being imposed is very real. This represents yet another potential financial burden on residents. The city has provided no fiscal analysis, no service plan, and no explanation for why residents should pay city-level taxes for county-level services they've always had and will not be changing. Annexation asks residents to shoulder higher taxes, higher fees, and significant uncertainty with no improvement in service and no demonstrated benefit. With that, I'll now summarize the comments you've heard tonight. Throughout this process, consistent and well-documented concerns have been raised, not only about what this annexation proposes, but about how it has been presented. I want to close by summarizing the core issues in the order that the statute requires the board to consider them. This case does not require the board to weigh competing policy preferences or speculate about future outcomes. The board's task is narrow and defined by statute. First, the record demonstrates that the proposal fails to meet the mandatory contiguity requirement of RCW 35A-14-460. In addition, the annexation was initiated through a notice of intention that does not meet the accuracy and completeness requirements of RCW 3693-090. These deficiencies are not discretionary. They are not cured by prior effort and expense. On these grounds alone, the proposal is statutorily ineligible and must be denied. If the board determines that the proposal may proceed to discretionary review, the objectives of RCW 3693-170 and 180 are more fully satisfied by an annexation that excludes Northridge. Removing Northridge would reduce boundary irregularities, better align service areas, avoid imposing annexation on an established neighborhood with documented opposition, and more closely reflect logical and efficient urban growth patterns, all while avoiding added financial burdens where no services will be added or changed. An underlying issue throughout this petition is the city's failure to complete the statutory analysis required before initiating the annexation. That deficiency is evident not only in the threshold issues raised, but also in the city's recent written request to the board that they consider staff time and resources already expended as a factor to approve this annexation. While the city may have invested significant effort to this point, prior work or expense is not a factor the board may consider under RCW 36.93. The board's role is to determine whether statutory requirements have been met. Where they have not, denial is required, regardless of prior effort. This pattern of post hoc justification reflects the same underlying issue, initiating annexation without completing the statutory analysis required at the outset, then attempting to cure deficiencies after the fact rather than complying with the law. This underlying issue of insufficient analysis and coordination was further highlighted while meeting with the fire chief, who confirmed that Northridge Fire Service and hydrants are unaffected by this annexation, and that the city had not coordinated with Northridge or, more importantly, the fire district regarding any agreements affecting these systems. Building on this theme of statutory compliance, the board recently received a late letter from a state representative supporting this annexation and highlighting the ILA process. That letter, however, does not address the central issue before this board. This hearing is not about whether cities in Washington can use the ILA process, but that it is used correctly. Like State Representative Berg, I too have significant concern about the outcome of this hearing because the proposal fails to meet mandatory requirements under state law. Approving this annexation despite these statutory deficiencies would set a precedent that allows cities to bypass legal obligations, undermining the rule of law protections this board exists to enforce. The Boundary Review Board exists to ensure annexations proceed lawfully, transparently, and in accordance with statute. Where mandatory requirements are not met, denial is required. Where discretionary objectives apply, the board has both the authority and responsibility to select the boundary that best satisfies them. For these reasons, we respectfully request the board find this proposal ineligible and deny the annexation for failure to meet the two mandatory thresholds discussed this evening. In the alternative, should the board proceed to discretionary review under 36, 93, 170, and 180, we ask that Northridge be excluded from the boundary as shown in the petition. Thank you for your time and careful consideration.
Thank you. Is my mic working? Is this? Okay, good. Okay. So then the next part of our presentations and testimony is there somebody representing Snohomish County here? Okay.
Move it really close so I can, is that too close?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Eileen Canola and I work for Snohomish County Planning and Development Services, and I'm representing the county on this testimony before the Boundary Review Board and the public on BRB hearing file 2025-06, the proposed City of Snohomish North Lake annexation. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and in representing the county on this important matter. We'd like to note that the county submitted its position statement and it's part of the BRB hearing packet. In addition, as part of the record, the county did submit its motion, approved motion on the hearing, and within that was an attachment that fully explained and detailed how this proposed annexation meets the factors and objectives of the Boundary Review Board. I would like to note that this annexation method, as mentioned by the City of Snohomish, RCW 35A 14296, is a method of annexation that was established in 2020, as stated before, and added to chapter 35A 14 RCW as an alternative method and is additional to all other methods of annexations listed in chapter 35A 14, or sorry, getting over a cold, RCW, including RCW 3514-460. As stated, it says a code city as provided in subsection 2 of this section may annex an incorporated territory pursuant to an interlocal agreement, which we did finalize an interlocal agreement with the City of Snohomish, and it is effective. Therefore, the Snohomish County agrees with this annexation, is in agreement with it. This method of annexation shall be an alternative method and is additional to all other methods provided for in this chapter. And I want to note that this annexation method, RCW 35A 14296, was used by the cities of Lake Stevens and Mukilteo and the town of Woodway. And the county has applied it in the same manner as it is being applied by the city of Snohomish. And that was reviewed by this Snohomish County Boundary Review Board. I don't want to go through all of the factors and objectives, but I would like to note that, just to clarify, the areas that are north of the annexation area are rural, and you cannot annex into them. So there's no island being created. In addition to that, if you were to exclude the North Ridge area, you would create an island, which is, of course, not consistent with the objectives and factors of the Boundary Review Board. So I just want to quickly just underscore how this proposal is consistent with the objectives and factors of the Boundary Review Board, as you're well familiar with. This proposal is consistent with the Growth Management Act, RCW 3670A 040. Snohomish County is fully planning under the Growth Management Act under Chapter 3670A RCW. The county has adopted a 2024-2044 comprehensive plan that contains a future land use map depicting the North Lake annexation area within the Snohomish urban growth area. Therefore, this area is subject to annexation, and so has been carefully planned throughout the years and is consistent with both the city and the county comprehensive plan. And with 3670A 020, the planning goals, the proposal for the North Lake annexation is consistent with the GMA Planning Goal 1, urban growth. The goal states encourage development in urban areas that are where adequate public facilities and services exist or can be provided in an efficient manner. The entirety of the areas proposed for annexation is within the city's UGA, and the city is a logical provider of public facilities and services. The county is more of a regional provider. With RCW 3670A 110, comprehensive plans, urban growth areas. The county, as I mentioned, has adopted a 2024-2044 comprehensive plan with a future land use map depicting the North Lake annexation area within the Snohomish UGA. This is the area where the city is meant to annex. As per the GMA, cities are the units of local government most appropriate to provide urban governmental services. And Snohomish County is working hard with its cities to facilitate annexation to ensure that we meet the intent of the Growth Management Act. RCW 3670A 2.0, countywide planning policies. The annexation proposal is consistent with the Snohomish County countywide planning policies, or also known as the CPPs. The proposal allows for the transition of unincorporated areas into incorporated areas within the UGA, which is supported by the following policies. Joint planning for the county and city shall develop comprehensive plan policies and development regulations that provide for the orderly transition of unincorporated urban growth areas to incorporated areas in UGAs. Mutual agreements may be utilized to address governance issues and expedite the transition, which we did through an interlocal agreement. And factors and objectives of the BRB. And as described in greater detail in that PDF staff report dated October 25th, 2025, which was part of the approved motion by the County Council for this annexation. The North Lake annexation is within the Snohomish UGA and reflected in the city and county's comprehensive plan. The annexation boundaries are logical, and the city and county have executed an interlocal agreement for the North Lake annexation. This ILA is a requirement of this method of annexation that is being used for the North Lake annexation, and it helps to facilitate the annexation and ensure agreement upon logical boundaries and the orderly transition of jurisdiction services. The city and county have existing service agreements to support regional and community needs related to IT, fire inspections, animal transportation services, housing and law enforcement services, waste management, jail services, and emergency management. And objectives of the Boundary Review Board, I'm just going to underscore a few. As described in greater detail in the PDF staff report and dated October 25th, the North Lake annexation proposal is consistent with the objectives of the BRB. In summary, annexation of the North Lake annexation will bring the existing natural neighborhoods, including the Northridge community, into the city's corporate limits to ensure logical annexation boundaries. There is rural area to the north, and then there's the city to the south, and there's rural to the east. So it's not, we're not creating islands of rural area because you can't annex those. The annexation proposal uses the physical boundaries of State Route 9 on the west and land designated on the county's future land use map as rural to the north and agricultural to the east. The city's corporate limits are to the south and adjacent to the annexation proposal. The proposed annexation will not affect the service areas for Fire District 4 and County Sheriff, as both will continue to service the area. The annexation will provide the opportunity for annexed areas to connect to sewer service as time passes and development happens over time. The North Lake annexation boundaries do not create abnormal or irregular boundaries. The annexation would create continuous city jurisdiction. The ILA for the North Lake annexation allowed for the city and county to agree upon the annexation boundaries to prevent abnormal, irregular boundaries. The county's Department of Public Works commented that it worked with the city prior to this annexation submittal on the annexation boundaries and accompanying interlocal agreement to make sure that Snohomish County Public Works concerns were addressed and that this annexation submittal reflects those discussions. I'm going to just underscore again that the North Lake annexation area is within the city's UGA and designated to be annexed according to the CPPs and the city and county's comprehensive plan and the Growth Management Act. This is consistent with the Growth Management Act that supports and directs cities to be the providers of urban services and counties to fulfill the roles of regional services. I am just going to summarize the county appreciates the opportunity to clarify that the annexation method used for this annexation is independent and alternative to other annexation methods in Chapter 35A 14 RCW, and to reiterate its support for the North Lake annexation by the City of Snohomish, BRB File 2025-06, as exemplified in the interlocal agreement with the City of Snohomish for the North Lake annexation, effective September 30th, 2025. And I just want to also mention that when the county finalized those annexations with the City of Lake Stevens, the City of Mukilteo, and the town of Woodway, we worked with the cities and our attorneys and their attorneys to ensure that we were meeting the letter of the law for this annexation method. Thank you very much.
Okay. So then we'll go ahead and move on. Are there any other government entities that want to testify before the Boundary Review Board? They have 15 minutes each. Fire districts, water districts, anything like that? Okay. So seeing nobody step forward, we'll go get the sign-up list for the people that have signed up to speak. And the public testimony, it's 5 minutes each. And so we will call out the name of the person, and then so please state your full name, spell your last name, and state your ad. If you refer to an exhibit during your testimony, please state the exhibit letter. Okay. So it looks like we've got about 2, 4, 6, 8, about a dozen people or so signed up. And so Penelope Gunterman. Okay. Mike Gallagher. Okay. You can stand at the podium there, sir, if you want to. Okay. What? And use the microphone, yes.
I want to thank Jesse Cole for all the work he put towards this. I think this document here that I read,
Name
Sorry, is the microphone on?
Oh, green. There you go. Now, all right. This document that I picked up was prepared by whoever, apparently a city or government attorney.
Can I have you repeat your last name for us?
Gallagher,
Gallagher. Thank you.
Gallagher. I happen to be an attorney for 43 years. Not as long as Jack, but still. I will say one thing though. When you read statutes that the legislature has provided for us to guide our lives, you read them together as a whole. You don't pick them apart and choose what you want, like they're done here in this case. First, in this thing here, they say that RCW 35A 14296 apparently overtakes 460. How does it do that? Because 296 states in the title, annexation of unincorporated territory pursuant to interlocal agreement, which is what the basis is. This lady just say is the basis for which they've approved this annexation. Interlocal agreement. That's in all the statutes under the chapter 35A 14. In fact, the one that Jesse has relied upon, 35A 14460, I actually wanted to read that to you. The title is Annexation of Territory Within Urban Growth Areas, Interlocal Agreement, Ordinance Providing for Annexation. 1, the legislative body of a county or code city planning under chapter 3670A RCW and subject to the requirements of 3670A 215 may initiate an annexation process for unincorporated territory by adopting a resolution commencing negotiations for an interlocal agreement as provided in chapter 3934 RCW between a county and any code city within the county. The territory proposed for annexation must meet the following criteria. A, be within the code city urban growth area designated under RCW 3670A 110, and B, and is a conjunction. That means both things have to occur in order for it to be effective. And at least 60% of the boundaries of the territory proposed for annexation must be contiguous to the annexing code, city, or one or more cities or towns. How do you get around that? You can't get around it. That's mandatory. What you're looking at, if my co-residents in my neighborhood is a lawsuit, if you go forward with this, insinuating a constitutional illegal taking of property under the Fifth Amendment. Period. And this lady here saying it's going to create an island. How do you create an island for Northridge, which has been the same way for 60 years? It's already an island, self-sufficient island. So you're not creating an island. If you don't do anything, you're maintaining the character of our neighborhood. What you want to do is change it and tax us. For what? What services are you going to be providing us? Nothing. No water, no sewage, no garbage. We already get all that.
You've got
This is a bunch of crap.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm leaving.
And then Eileen, you've already spoken.
Sorry.
You're on the sign up list here. You've already done your.
Oh, yes, I have. Sorry, I didn't know if I had to sign up or not, so I just signed up.
And then Nina Celestine.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think I'll be quiet, but okay, start.
Can we get your name and address?
My name is Nina Celestine. My address is 5620 Northridge Drive. Good evening, members of the Boundary Review Board. Thank you for the opportunity to
And the
speak.
spelling of your last name, please.
Oh, Celestine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, my name is Nina Celestine. I serve as the Vice President of the Board of the Northridge Water Corporation. We are not an HOA, just want to make sure because the city can't get that right. I'm also speaking as a resident on behalf of the community. We are here tonight to express our opposition to the annexation of the Northridge into the city of Snohomish. One thing I do want to address is the land that is directly shares a fence with me that is in that UGA area is actually personally owned by the Olam family. It is not rural land. So I hope the county fixes that. We are a self-sustaining community that's existed for more than 60 plus years, for decades, which is longer than I've been alive. The residents have invested in, maintained their own infrastructure through independent member-owned water corporation, which provides safe, reliable, and affordable service. What makes the system successful is not just the performance, but its governance. Members have a direct voice. They have voting rights over the decisions that affect cost, operations, and long-term sustainability. This system works because it was built by the community and continues to be responsibly governed by the people they elected, such as myself, and the individuals it serves. At our meeting with the city, residents were told that no vote was required for this annexation. Had that not been misrepresented by the city, residents could have petitioned for a vote sooner. The lost opportunity matters because the concerns you're hearing tonight are not hypothetical. They are real, material, and unresolved. Our opposition is grounded in the risk and uncertainties that this would introduce to a community that is functioning well, which many people spoke to today. The level of planning and due diligence completed by the city does not justify the magnitude of the impact that the decision could have. Many long-term cost and consequences have not been clearly identified or addressed as we see fit. For example, we have not been given clear information about stormwater and drainage fees. That uncertainty alone could result in a very significant financial impact. Equally concerning is the city's lack of meaningful engagement with our Northridge Water Corporation. At no point has the city made any kind of effort to understand how our system operates, its current condition, or how the annexation would affect it. They are merely planning without that. As a result, critical issues remain unexamined, such as a potential rise in excise tax, as many have spoke about today, regulatory requirements, roadway and stormwater obligations, long-term maintenance responsibilities. All these new standards imposed could lead to substantial cost that would ultimately be passed on to the residents. From our perspective, this feels less like a collaborative transition and more like an imposed action. Like we mentioned, it would increase property taxes, city-related costs. And I know this also well. I lived in the city of Snohomish for 2 years before I moved to Northridge, and I can speak to that personally. I'm very familiar with the high cost of the city water and services, sewer services that the city provides. I'll tell you that my bill for 1 month in the city of Snohomish is my bill for 3 months in the city in Northridge. Residents are understandably concerned about being exposed to similar costs without clarity or justification. There are also very legitimate concerns about the city capacity to maintain the infrastructure. Two lights in a local roundabout for about a year, they were reported in November 2024, have been out with the cities working on it. Sidewalks along Terrace, if you haven't been down that road, I encourage you to go down that road. Basically, they just took the street and made a little line, and that's where they want people to walk, children, families, because they put so many people in one small area, they can't even make a safe sidewalk for them. So I think these examples raise a reasonable question about whether the city is prepared to assume the responsibility for more than 240 additional acres. Beyond costs and services, annexation would result in a loss of local decision-making, such as no firework ordinance. This represents a broader erosion of community autonomy. I, tonight, am speaking on behalf of 79 residents who oppose this annexation and are concerned about the financial uncertainty. The financial uncertainty it creates. Many of these residents live on a fixed or limited income, and the potential cost could increase, really could put a strain on their ability to remain in their homes that they've been in for quite some time. I'll close with this. Northridge is a stable, self-sustaining community that works. The annexation introduces uncertainty, financial risk, and a loss of local control. Without clear costs, clear benefits, or meaningful community support, the city has not demonstrated sufficient planning, engagement, or compliance to its own policies to justify this action. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for fairness, transparency, and a voice in decisions that affect our homes and livelihoods. This is the reason we respectfully ask you to deny or modify this annexation. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration.
Thank you. Ryan Cox.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ryan Cox, Ryancox. I live at 6231 Northridge Drive. I have a prepared statement. Good evening, members of the Boundary Review Board. My name is Ryan Cox. I'm a resident of the proposed North Lake annexation area. I serve as the president of Northridge Water Corporation, a privately owned utility that serves a community and would remain independent regardless of any annexation outcome. I am also a real estate broker with a deep appreciation for thoughtful community development. I want to first acknowledge the detailed testimonies from my fellow community members regarding the multiple noncompliances in the interlocal agreement process between the city of Snohomish and the Snohomish County. These include failures to meet the mandatory 60% contiguity requirement under RCW 35A 14460 and issues with the accuracy and completeness of the notice of intention as required by RCW 3693090. Additionally, I echo the concerns raised about the financial burdens this annexation will impose on residents, particularly those on fixed income, especially since no additional city services would be provided to offset these rising costs. At a high level, I just want to emphasize we're not opposed to progress. We're not opposed to responsible growth. As a real estate professional, I value developments that enhance our neighborhoods and support long-term vitality. However, process, codes, requirements, they all exist for a reason. To ensure fairness, transparency, accountability. Allowing this flawed ILA execution to proceed would set a dangerous precedent, potentially eroding the integrity of future annexations and undermining public trust in these critical proceedings. The board has a responsibility to uphold these standards and ensure they are followed meticulously. In closing, I just want to say, I urge the board to recognize these procedural shortcomings and the factual inaccuracies presented and to make the right decision by rejecting this annexation proposal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Denise Cleveland. What was that? I didn't hear it. Okay. Denise Cleveland. Okay. Okay, thank you. Mike Cleveland. Okay, thank you, sir. Colleen Gallagher. She left. Okay. Frank Rindko.
Yes, my name is Frank Rentko. I'm actually here for my mother, Lorna Rentko, who lives at 101 20th Street within the annex. My parents moved to the area in 1965. And I just wanted to voice my support for the annexation and her support for the annexation. That's all I got.
Thank you. And Michael Celestine. Celistine. Okay, seeing nobody come forward. Oh, okay.
I didn't know I was speaking today, and I probably didn't have anything prepared, but I'm against the annexation for obvious reasons.
Could you give your name and address? for
Michael
the-
Celestine, MICHAEL, 5620 Northridge Drive. I am the husband of Nina Celestine, who spoke earlier today. She said everything I had to know, that you guys had to know. But I do have one objection. Police services, like they mentioned earlier today, will be cut short. And she mentioned that they came from Everett. Police services don't come from Everett. Our East Precinct is stationed out of Monroe. And with the city of Snohomish there, for quicker responses, the city of Snohomish provides police services to unincorporated areas in the city of Snohomish. And they hold the crime or incident until the East County units do arrive. I'm not sure if they also mentioned creating an island. As before, we are currently an island. We've been that way for 60 years. And if you guys are familiar with the Esperance area of Edmonds, that area is a island within Snohomish County, and they've been that way for I don't know how long. But services, we provide services, unincorporated services, fire and police to that area with no problem whatsoever. So I'll end with that, and I have an objection to the annexation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll go back to Penelope Gunterman, who was first. Did you want to speak now?
My name's Penelope Gunterman, 633. Oh, do you want me to spell that?
Please.
PENELOPEGUNTERMANN.
Thank you.
Make sure you get the two N's. 6330 Northridge Drive. And I have. Oh, is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've been a resident of Northridge for 33 years and secretary of the Water Corporation Board for 8 years. I want to concur with the concerns that other people have raised. And my concern, you all are really looking at the legal issues, which I appreciate. I'm a therapist. I look at process. And I just want to say that the process, the city, I think, is understaffed for this kind of process. And while they did do some outreach in the ways that they talked about, we invited them to our annual meeting to try to get some information. And we got just a general overview and not much information about costs. We have just not gotten adequate information to help us feel comfortable or to feel like we are important to them. I'm looking at building community. Snohomish has a great community. Our neighborhood has a great community. The process has not been one to encourage a greater sense of community within the whole potentially annexed area. And I know that's not your bailiwick, but I just want to say that the process has not been as collaborative and informative and hospitable as it could have been. And that, unfortunately, I think has created some trust issues that would need to be addressed at some point. So that may not be your purview, but I felt like I wanted to talk about that part of the process as well. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. So is anybody online have their hand up? Ronnie Schuler. So Ryan Schuler, you're online. Would you like to address the Boundary Review Board? Is his mic on?
Yes, I would, if you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm a resident in this annexation area. My name's Ryan Schuler. I live at 5801 107th Avenue Southeast. I'm the manager of a small water system that's in this annexation area, and I'm concerned about the impact to that and also the non-communication and care that seems to not be with the city for what they're going to do with that. Most of the properties we have are not likely the size that can develop in this water system. So as area gets developed, it's going to be difficult to be able to deal with the hard surface and infrastructure change. They don't have a plan to take that system over. There's latecomer fees to hook into it. There's just a lot of costs that people are not going to be able to absorb, and no plan to be able to incorporate that in, no communication. So there's concerns with that. I'm also concerned that they don't have a great plan for road improvements. This development they just did up up by Northridge where Delta used to be on Terrace, there's no widening, there's no offsite road improvements, no requirement of that developer to deal with that road and make it wider, have a walk facility. That's not responsible in letting that development proceed like that. Also concerned that their density is way more dense than what we have out here now. There's been no communication about what that real density would allow. That new home development is an example. It's too dense for the character of what we have around us. We haven't had any say in this annexation process. There's no way to say no to it because of the process that's been adopted now. And it just feels unrepresentative. Don't have a say in it. And if anybody was quizzed or really discussed with it that lives here and wants to stay living here, they're not in support of this annexation or the density the city's proposing or their lack of care for what they're doing with existing infrastructure with these water systems. So that's my main concerns. I appreciate time to be able to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And that was the only person online. Does anybody else online want to raise their hand and speak? Oh, just leave it on. Yeah. Does anybody else online want to raise their hand and speak? He just turned it on. Yeah. Okay. So seeing no one raise their hand online, we'll go ahead and consider them all done. And is there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak to us? And so then we're back to the city of Snohomish has a 10-minute rebuttal period.
Thank you. I don't have a whole lot to add apart from what I've already said. And Eileen also covered the 35A 14460. It was adopted in 2003. It is for a different kind of annexation. It is not applicable to the interlocal agreement annexation that was adopted in 2020 that is being proposed for the North Lake annexation. So that was the first issue. I also heard a lot of comments about the notice of intention, completeness, and completeness of the notice of intention is determined by the Boundary Review Board clerk, and that determination was made. So I think that issue is settled by the the clerk of the Boundary Review Board. There was a statement about the interlocal agreement being the only viable annexation option. I think a lot of comments this evening kind of speak to why that comment was made in there. I think any other annexation type would not be successful for the Northridge neighborhood, especially. It is a fully developed neighborhood, and there's really no reason for anybody in that area to want to annex to the city. It is an urban growth. It is developed for urban growth, especially under the definition in RCW 3678-030-48. And so given that definition, it needs to be in an urban area. As far as this also speaks directly to the Boundary Review Board's objectives, objective number 8 in RCW 3693-180. That statement in staff's analysis was not intended to in any way apply urgency. It's just a fact. It's not likely to be successful in any other manner. As far as service issues created, the service issue is primarily for county staff. If this area is maintained as unincorporated, county staff would have to travel through the city to get to this one small area. And that is something that they have told us they don't want to do. As Eileen mentioned, map 3 in the opponent's brief about the islands, those are rural lands, and it also contains one large wetland. And in the RCWs in 3670A, those areas are by definition not appropriate to be in an incorporated area. And there was also mention of an LID, and that has not been considered by the city for this area at all. So I think that was all I heard. And so those are my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Chair, I do have some questions. I wonder when would be a good time to ask.
Allison? Is this a good time for questions?
Generic question.
I was going to give the floor to Grace, but this is time to ask questions, correct?
I heard my name called.
Yeah.
I'm just asking process because I do have questions for Director Adam. So is this when would be the appropriate time?
Now.
Okay. Director Adam, you have earlier in your presentations covered some, I actually have 2 questions. I'll ask the 2 questions so I'll give you a chance to formulate your answer. You have a slides on financial, and I've heard from the constituent that they are concerned about the impact. So I would like you to revisit that slides one more time and maybe add more details. And secondly, what I'm hearing, I think the underlying current is potential unaware of when development comes in. What would the cost for the constituent? How does that work when we have 10 more houses comes in for a 10-acre lot? And now I'm hearing from Ryan with a small water system, who's going to pay for the upgrade? Perhaps visiting that and educate a little bit how and who pay for developments. That might be helpful. So there you go.
Sure. So I'll answer the financial question first. From the analysis that we did, the property taxes are actually expected to go down for most of the residents in this annexation area. The city's tax levy is lower than the county's, and in fact, in the last year, the county raised their property taxes again, and the city did not. So the 35 cents per $1,000 of assessed value was, I think, conservative because it was based on 2024 taxes. As far as the extra fees on the water districts and that system, that is not the only fees that we could think of that might even apply are business licenses or something like that. But I looked it up, and it's a nonprofit corporation, which means that it doesn't even have a business license. So it operates under the purview of the Department of Health Office of Drinking Water, and that would continue. And it's not necessarily a matter that the city cannot take it over. It's that it's something that would be a much larger discussion between the water corporation and the city if that's something that they wanted to do. The city has in the past taken over small water districts, and it's been a conversation and a negotiation, and it's not something that we just swoop in and do. So that is a process.
Yeah, let me clarify my questions. I don't think the constituent was looking for the city to take over. I don't think that's what they were looking for. I guess my leading question is for the constituent better understanding. If a development to come in, like we have a big farm that's 10 acres, for example, and a development comes in and bought the 10 acre and would like to develop it. And obviously there's going to be more household, sewer systems may need to upgrade, water system may need to upgrade. I guess the questions I'm guessing the constituent concern is who is going to pay for the upgrade? Is their water bill going to go up when it got annexed and development comes in? And so I understand a little bit of a development of how it works and who's bearing that cost. I just want you to have the opportunity to explain how that development works.
Okay, yes. So if it was an impact caused by the development, then the developer would pay for it. So if the existing water system had, if they needed to move a pipe or something like that, the developer would pay for that. If there was no impact at all, no problem. But we have had that before where they needed to relocate a pipe or something like that for a sidewalk. The developer pays for that impact.
So currently, the Northridge area is all on septic systems. If there were a new 50-lot development put up in that property, would it be put on the city of Snohomish sewer system?
If there was a new development in the area, that development would. The Northridge would not be required to connect.
Yeah, I wasn't implying that they would, but
Right.
yes, but,
Right.
okay. And development at this point in time would probably require sewers,
Yes.
not septic. That was sort of my question. Okay.
I think that was maybe the concern when people not familiar with the development. If you have somebody's making money selling a lot of houses, the existing neighbors that's been there for 30 years, are they now required, A, to hook up to the system and pay for it? B, if we have newer, denser populations coming in and now we need to upgrade a sewer system, who is paying for that? So I think that might be part of the questions and lack of conversations in answering that because not everybody's familiar with who pays for what.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Chair, I have one question.
Oh, did you have another one?
I thought,
Did
I'm
you
good.
have another one? Did
I'm
you,
good.
Grace?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Allison,
Yeah,
get nice and close to your mic.
in listening to pardon me, gotta move microphone. In listening to the testimony today, and of course, we're sitting here with a finished product that we are trying to make a decision on. But during the entire process through the last year and a half, listening to Jesse and then listening to the citizens and then listening to both the county and the city, were any of these issues discussed with the city and the residents? Was there an opportunity to bring those issues before? I'm just trying to wonder, it kind of the classic movie quote, failure to communicate renders in my mind is we wouldn't be deciding this issue if some of these issues were being addressed collectively. And so I'm kind of asking, I'm not trying to hand this thing. The idea is that if people come to an agreement, it makes our decision to rule on the legitimacy of the process at that point in time. We're being asked to resolve an issue that's within the community and between the county and the city. Everybody has their own marching orders. I understand that. I worked in the public sector for 25 years. I know that, but I'm asking just a fundamental question. If we try to make a decision, neither our decision will go either way. But I'm asking, is there an opportunity to reopen the discussion and address some of these issues that everybody comes in at least, not 100%, but they agree that they can work it out, like answering her question too. That's a general thing. It's an observation I have. I'm getting too old to say. I just as you listen, I understand everybody's positions. I understand what the city's trying to do. I understand what the Growth Management Act did in terms of the urban growth area. But we have to work this out together. And of course, it always hits the people's pockets. And unless we can address that and balance it out so that they know that they've got an opportunity to benefit from the system or not, ultimately, it's a vote of the taxpayers themselves that have to decide it. But I'm feeling that we're in a situation where any decision we make is not going to work because it's going to favor one side or the other. And I'm hoping that we can, I don't know if you can turn the clock back a little bit and get some issues resolved, but I'm more curious as to when the city and the county got together, whether the process they selected ruled out any discussion about the issues that the citizens have, and we serve the citizens. That's all I'm going to say anymore.
So I'd like to follow that up with a question to Jesse. Have you had an opportunity in a public meeting or what?
Sorry, was there a question in there that you wanted Snohomish to answer?
Well, I want them to consider what I'm pointing out is that, is there an opportunity for them to turn the clock back a little bit and get some answers? And then when they come back, nobody's going to win 100%, but at least you come to some agreement that you're addressing them, whether it's to answer the questions that are not being answered and still follow through the process. But, there's some kind of mutual agreement that we're working for you guys.
I guess I'm seeing this as a two different process. I mean, for the city staff or county staff doing public outreach and educating the neighborhood of what impact they may have, it's one process, which is independent of our judicial process and the status, the RCW that we have to follow, which is independent of the public outreach process. I just want to make sure that we understand what our roles are in this process.
So Jesse, have you had an opportunity to express your concerns that you've very well delineated for us and, in your input to us? Have you had a chance at the city of Snohomish meetings when they adopted the interlocal agreement, or the county when they adopted it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've given comments at public hearings, both at the city level and the county level. To Allison's point, the NOI also states that we, as residents, do not have a vote in this at all. It's not required. I mean, it says right there. So that the field, you're correct. We didn't get any feedback back one way or the other. And also to Penelope's point, we invited the city to our meeting. There was no outreach that way. So it was a very one-way street to try to pull any information. So yes, if that answers your question.
Okay. Good. And I've got one more for Allison. It's not within our purview to ask them to go back and redo something. We have what we have.
I know what we have.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just expressing the difficulty. Normally, we look at proposals and we can make a decision based on what the law says.
Okay, good. Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off, Jesse.
That's okay. The one more thing that I wanted to just update too, and it's to answer your question about the land around it. They've said now a couple times that island to the north is all rural. It's not. It's the same as the parcels that are being annexed. My parents actually live there. It's not rural. It's very built out in city, just the same as the annexing area. They're not. It's not rural.
That's understandable. It is within the urban growth area boundary, and then the area north is not. And so that is not within our purview to determine the UGA boundaries and what can and cannot be annexed under the UGA boundary. As a community engagement professional, I did want to ask a bit more about the engagement. I know you did have a slide. I counted, it seemed like there were 5 or 6 opportunities for the public to provide input. Now, when those engagement events happened, how was that feedback then brought into the process? How was the community feedback informing the process and impacting decisions?
So those events, we had questions, and then we also had people who were largely in favor. We did not have anybody from Northridge attend any of those events. So
How was the community informed of those events?
we had the public house, the city projects open house is a postcard mailer that goes out to all residents of the city. And it's also a news flash.
Sorry, there's one speaker, please. Thank
There's
you.
also a news flash on our website, and I believe it goes, well, it's more than the residents of the city. It goes to everybody in our mailing area. So everybody who gets the magazine is beyond that. So there's also the barbecue that went specifically to all of the residents in the urban growth area. That was the subject of the annexation. There were the letters that went out. We also had booths at the farmers market. There was the web page with links to send emails with questions. We had multiple methods available.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, our public testimony is closed.
Sorry, public testimony is
Public
closed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay. Is there any other questions for Claire? Yes, Kate.
I just wanted to clarify one of the objectives, number 3. I will read it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll read it. The creation and preservation of logical service areas. The county says that it's furthered, and could you elaborate for the city of Snohomish?
Yeah. So by annexing this area, as far as servicing the infrastructure and stormwater, that keeps it contiguous for, the city area is all contiguous. So the county staff no longer has to drive through the city to get to this specific area. And I think that's something that they're interested in doing. They're not interested in maintaining these areas to the level of service that is somewhat urban in nature, especially if they have to come through an urban area to get there. As far as that does not consider the water corporation, which I think is something that the speakers this evening were talking about. That's something else.
And then the number 7, the county says that it does not apply. City concurs with that. The adjustment of impractical boundaries, that doesn't apply.
Okay. Yeah, not necessarily.
No. Right. Thanks. That's all my questions.
And I've got to correct myself here. We haven't closed the public hearing yet. We got started asking questions. So you want to go ahead and ask your question? Yes. That's a mess up on my part.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I actually attended 2 of the events the city did. One was a visioning where they did gather people from the area to talk about what would they dream about in terms of parks and what were their concerns about transportation and all of that. So I did attend that.
Okay.
And I attended the barbecue and had some financial questions, and there was no information available. So
Okay.
some of us tried, and it may have been too early in the process for them to have specific answers, but I just wanted to say there were some of us at those events.
Okay, thank you. And so I'd like to entertain a motion here. We have three choices, board members. If we want to continue our hearing and we recess it for further testimony, which would probably be tomorrow, or if we want to close the testimony and set a date for deliberation, and that could start this evening or be postponed. And if the testimony is closed and the board moves directly to deliberations. So those are the three.
I would
choices.
like to move that we close public testimony and continue to deliberation tonight.
Can I modify to close the testimony, take a 5-minute break and then deliberation?
I think that the chair can set a break anytime you want, so.
You vote on the motion. then we'll-
Yeah, so seconded.
Okay, so I have a motion by Kate and seconded by Nicholas to close the public testimony and continue deliberations now, correct? Okay, so that's option number 3 on our agenda here. So then we will go ahead and take what? Oh, yes. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so we have a unanimous decision. And so then we've been here for almost 2 hours, so we'll go ahead and take a break. And with the restroom issue, it might be closer to 10 minutes than 5 minutes. I'm not sure where we go, so. Okay, so we're on recess at 7:52. Okay, good evening. I'm Dave Hambleton, the chairman of the Snohomish County. And we're having a hearing on the North Snohomish, I want to use the right title. Okay, I'll get closer there. That better? Okay, yeah. So we're having a public, we just closed our public hearing and we're going to head into the deliberations on the BRB file 2025-06 City of Snohomish North Lake annexation. And so do we have a member who wants to start discussing or whatever? Oh, okay. I've got to read something here. I'm sorry. Deliberations. During the hearing, the board received testimony from interested parties as well as members of the public. The board considered all written materials and other evidence, including but not limited to the notice of intent and attachments and documents submitted by the city, county, and registered voters residing within the area being considered. Board members, you have reviewed all of the written material in conjunction with the proposed annexation. And could I get a verbal confirmation that you have reviewed the information?
Yes.
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 You're talking about information that we had previously or what's in our notebook?
That you've reviewed the information in the notebook, essentially.
Well, I did find a section in the notebook that wasn't in our previous materials.
Okay.
Have you reviewed the written
Yeah.
materials?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Not everything. Well, there are 2 sections in the notebook that I didn't see before.
Okay.
Have you since reviewed them?
Pardon me?
Have you since reviewed them?
I've glanced at it. I didn't know how they would fit into the, I mean,
Okay.
there was the
So
presentation by Jesse and whatnot.
Okay.
It was a limited amount of time to review that.
Okay, yeah. So we'll consider that a yes, that we've reviewed the material, I think, okay? So there are certain requirements specified in the Growth Management Act and the Revised Code of Washington that must be met before we can deliberate or decide on the proposal before this body. An information response from each board member, must be recorded before the board consider. So looking for a response from each board member that the certain requirements of the Growth Management Act and RCW have been met.
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes, as presented.
Okay. So the statutory requirements are as follows. RCW 3693.157 states that the decisions of the Boundary Review Board located in a county that is required or chooses to plan under RCW 36.78.040 must be consistent with RCW's 3678.020, 3678.110, 36.70A.210. RCAW 3678.20 establishes 15 planning goals that cover urban growth, reduce sprawl, transportation, housing, economic benefit, property rights, permits, natural resource industries, open space and recreation, environment, citizen participation and coordination, public facilities and services, historic preservation, climate change and resiliency, shorelines of the state. These are the 15 specific goals identified in state law. To determine whether the state statute has been met, I will ask members to cite those specific goals that you felt were addressed in order in your review or were of particular note. Please share your observation for the record. Members may concur or offer their own observations. So maybe Nicholas, would you go down through the list and which ones you feel we're talking about, and then we can get people to concur, or maybe which ones aren't applicable in this case?
Yeah. Of note, I would say urban growth, reducing sprawl, housing, economic development, environment. You did mention a wetland, right?
No.
Snohomish, city of Snohomish mentioned environment. And though there are always room for improvement, I think citizen participation and coordination. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. And I will pass it off to Grace. Anything of note that you would like to talk about with those?
I did not hear about historic preservation. I think it just should be just a simple statement and clarifications if there's any historic. Oh, we did hear a close about hearing. I do not remember hearing any historic preservation, but there's also no 106 or any permits that I see. So I just presume that that doesn't apply in this scenario. So I'll answer my own question. Yeah, so that was part of it to make sure that there's no historical evidence that was found. So that doesn't apply in this scenario. I do also see that there was a park, so we cover that and open space and recreations a little bit in the materials. So I don't have additional concerns
And I suggest we scratch shorelines of the state. We didn't talk about shorelines.
because there's no shorelines of the state in the area. Yep.
Okay, so we've canceled historic preservation, shorelines of the state, and then Nicholas, did you say the cancel or keep transportation?
Or just not applicable, not necessarily canceled. It's not applicable to site.
Well, the city of Snohomish will be maintaining the roads.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
And do we want to leave environment in there that we?
Yes,
They're gonna
because they do
necessarily
have
discuss all
permits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Did you mention number 9 as being not applicable?
I think, Chair, can I clarify something? We're not moving on to the 9 objectives. We're just stating how this
Planning goals.
how this annexation either forwards or doesn't forward the planning goals under the GMA. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I put my statement in?
Yeah.
I think the annexation forwards the goal of containing urban growth within the urban growth boundary, ensuring housing for the population and the provision of public facilities and services.
I'm not on the right page.
Okay. So we basically have a list that we basically agreed to. So I'm going to ask the members to, share your observations, so on. Okay. So RCW 78.110 states that the county choosing to plan under RCW shall designate urban growth area within which urban growth shall be encouraged and outside of which growth cannot occur only if it is not urban in nature. Does the annexation proposal before us satisfy the urban growth requirement?
Yes.
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 I agree.
Okay, so that's and I agree, all five of us, okay. RCW 36.78.210 states that countywide planning policies must be established before an annexation proposal may be considered by the BRB. Are the countywide planning policies in place?
Yes.
Yes, I also want to particularly call out that it meets the county adopted comp plan.
Yes.
Yes.
And Dave says yes, okay. So having dispensed with the prerequisites, the board will now consider if the annexation proposal meets or satisfies the requirements outlined in RCW 3693.170 factors and RCW 3693.180 the objectives. So the basis for the board's decision, RCW 3693.180 objectives. There are 9 specific objectives, and we must determine whether these objectives have been furthered, hindered, or does not apply to the proposal before the board. The 9 objectives required, and since we're going to go, we'll go ahead and get opinions on each one as we go through it. I'm not going to go through the whole list and then bounce back, okay? And so the acceptable answers are furthers the objective, hinders the objective, or does not apply. And so the first one is preservation of natural neighborhoods and communities.
Furthers the objective.
Okay. Use of physical boundaries, including but not limited to bodies of water.
Sorry, are you asking?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get all 5 votes.
Yes, so I would like to add a little bit more context. My vote is to furthers the objective. I wanted to thank the city's effort and also Jesse's effort in putting all the evidence. It is a difficult one for me to consider, especially considering that Councilman Sam Lowe also written a statement in support of the constituents of rejecting the petitions. And the reason that I am still voting for further the objective is the statute that I was asked to rate and make the decisions on is really based on the urban growth area, the Urban Growth Management Act that was established in 1990. Your neighborhood has been established prior to that. And then in addition, the ILA requirement of the annexations subsequently adopted after that. So based on my understanding of the sequence of event and what is the statute and the power that endowed in me in making this decision based on the statute in the evaluation. And that is why I am furthering the objective and agreeing that option 1.
And then Kate?
I also believe it furthers the objective. It incorporates the entire area between the city boundary and the urban growth boundary, and it preserves the shape of all of the neighborhoods within it. It doesn't cut through any of them.
I concur with what the prior members had said.
So now we'll move on to the next objective. Use of physical boundaries included, but not. I wrote it down because I furthers the objective. Okay. Use of physical boundaries. Just for the record, we haven't had a hearing like this for about 5 or 6 years. So we're all brand new and we have some new members. So we're, sort of going through the learning curve here.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience.
Here and Dave, yeah.
Okay, I'll put my mouth right on the mic.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so use of physical boundaries, including but not limited to bodies of water, highways, and land contours. Nick?
Furthers the objective.
Furthers the objective.
Kate?
It furthers the objective. It uses the city boundaries and the urban growth boundary as the boundary.
Allison?
I concur.
And Dave concurs. Creation and preservation of logical service areas.
I believe it does further the objective, and I would encourage the city to help to talk through the concerns of the citizens and in understanding their systems and how they'll be incorporated or not incorporated.
Okay. Grace?
I will also further agree the further subjective. I would also encourage, I have heard Sheriff Nielsen, Nini's husband. Yep. I did hear about the concerns about the sheriff offices and services between the county and the city. I do know also there is such a thing as an interlocal between the city and the county to make sure that services is continuous. So I would encourage the city and the county look into it to make sure that there's no a gap, just to make sure that the services it's continued for people that are
And if
maybe.
I'm not mistaken, I think the sheriff's department provides this, they provide this service for the city. They
Yes, and
contract-
the county for the county, but sometimes they do have an interlocal to make sure that a fast service could be achieved. So I'm just encouraging for the city and the county to look into that.
Kate, on logical service areas?
Yes, I agree. It furthers the objective. It allows for the continuation of water service, and any future water or sewer would be logically connected to the city.
Allison?
I concur.
Okay, and Dave concurs. Prevention of abnormally irregular boundaries.
I believe that it furthers the objective. I would like to state for the community members that came here, there won't be an island to the north due to all of that being unincorporated. You're unincorporated right now, and you will be incorporated into the city of Snohomish. The island situation is really when there's an annexation and there's a sliver. Say they didn't take your part of the full take. That would result in an island. And that is what the law is talking about when it's talking about an island. Just because the north side, the rural north, is not incorporated into the city of Snohomish, that doesn't make it an island under the law.
Okay, good. Grace?
I would also further the objective. I also want to like to elaborate that Mr. Jesse Bodol has mentioned, offered some suggestions of alternative annexations with a different shape. Unfortunately, the statute that are given to me, I do not have the rights or the power to redraw the urban growth area that was being adopted under the urban growth area that was adopted in 1990. So that is my context.
I agree. It also furthers the objective. It incorporates the entire area between the city boundary and the urban growth boundary, preventing any irregular boundaries.
Yeah, according to the state code, this particular proposal meets the urban growth area boundaries. It satisfies that particular part of the planning document.
Okay. And that furthers the objective, and I say it does also. Discouragement of multiple incorporations of small cities and encouragement of incorporation of cities in excess of the 10,000 population in heavily populated urban areas. Does that really not apply?
Yeah, I wonder if that doesn't apply. Do any other board members have qualms with that not applying?
I concur with you that this doesn't apply because there is not other smaller cities wants to annex this area.
Okay.
Kate?
The county believes it doesn't apply. My read of this is it would discourage any incorporation of, say, the Northridge neighborhood as a separate small city. So I would say it furthers the objective of discouraging incorporation of small, but I'm fine to skip over it because
You make a good point though, because the Northridge could potentially be its own annexations for a city.
It could incorporate,
Yeah. So maybe further, and by doing so, it discourages, so it furthers the objective.
So one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll say furthers the objective then.
Okay.
Dave,
Allison?
I accept the lady's observation. I concur too.
Okay.
Furthers the objective.
And Dave concurs with furthers. Dissolution of inactive special purpose districts.
Not applicable.
Not applicable.
Not applicable.
Same here.
And Dave says does not apply. Okay. Adjustment of impractical boundaries.
I would say it doesn't apply. I understand that it kind of fixes an impractical boundary currently since it goes up to the urban growth area boundary. But I'm okay saying that it's not applicable.
I read it slightly differently. I read it adjustment of impractical boundaries from the resident standpoint where there was a request to adjust the boundaries. So, but I do not support that request. So I'm not sure how to answer that, adjustments of impractical boundaries.
Well, I don't think in this case we had any really impractical boundaries. There was a pretty square line across there.
That's
And
true.
we're going
And it's
to the
it's a
urban growth.
UGA, yeah.
Yeah, the UGA. It filled in the hole there, I think, but
So it does not apply then.
Yeah, I really think it's back to that island question. You know, if you have a city and then there's this, 3 parcels that are not, and everywhere around it is city,
Yeah.
then that would apply here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also said does not apply.
and Dave says does not apply. Okay.
Okay, Allison, it
Oh,
also
Allison, sorry
comply,
about that.
doesn't comply.
Yeah.
I mean, it complies.
Incorporations as cities or towns or annexations to cities or towns of unincorporated area which are urban in character.
Furthers the objective.
Furthers the objective.
Furthers, this area has already begun to develop in a similar character to the rest of the residential areas of Snohomish County. I'm sorry, the city of Snohomish. So I would say that it furthers the objective.
Allison?
It furthers the objective.
And Dave says furthers the objective. Protection of agricultural and rural lands which are designated for long-term productive agricultural and resource use by a comprehensive plan adopted by the county legislative authority.
By not taking the area north of the urban growth area boundary, I would say this does not apply overall.
Okay. Grace?
I concur that thought. I'm just not quite sure how to answer the question because by adopting the annexation, which is excluding the part, is it in the protections of agricultural and rural lands which designated for long-term productive? I'm thinking it doesn't apply because the area that we annex is not for agriculture.
Right.
So to answer this question, it does not apply.
Does not apply. Yes. Okay, good. Kate?
Does not apply.
Okay. Allison?
Does not apply.
And Dave does not apply. Factors. The board is also required to discuss factors outlined in RCW 3693.170 that state the board shall consider the factors affecting such proposals, which shall include but not be limited to the following: population and territory, population density, land area and land uses, comprehensive plans and zoning, as adopted under Chapter 3563, 35A.63, or 36.70 RCW. Comprehensive plans and development regulations adopted under Chapter 3670A RCW. Applicable service agreements entered to under Chapter 36115 or 36.34 RCW. Applicable interlocal annexation agreements between a county and its cities, per capita assessed evaluation, topography, natural boundaries and drainage basins, proximity to other populated areas, the existence and preservation of prime agricultural soils and productive agricultural uses, the likelihood of significant growth in the area and in adjacent incorporated and unincorporated areas during the next 10 years, local location and most desirable future location of community facilities. 2, municipal services that need for municipal services, effective ordinances, government codes, regulations, and resolutions on existing uses, present cost and adequacy of government services and controls in the area, prospects of government services from other sources, probable future needs for such services and controls, probable effect of proposed or alternative on cost and adequacy of services and controls in the area and adjacent area, the effect on the finances, debt structure, and contractual obligations and rights of all affected government units. And number 3, the effect of the proposed or alternative on adjacent areas, on mutual economic and social interest, and on the local government structure of the county. Board members, I will now call on each of you to offer any significant comments regarding whether the proposal before us either has or has not met the stated criteria above. Please note the proposal does not have to meet all of the criteria stated above. The board must determine whether this annex proposal has satisfied the intent stated in the factors delineated in RCW 36.193.070.
Chair, can I request that we go through it point by, like, take number 1 altogether and then take number 2 altogether?
Okay, we can do that. I thought maybe we could do them all at once, but yeah, so. Okay. So number 1.
Be thorough.
So number 1, met or not met?
I believe it's met. Applicable interlocal annexation agreements between a county and its city, the proximity to other populated areas, the likelihood of significant growth, and location and most desirable future location for community facilities under 1.
I concur. Number 1, it meet the objective.
Yes, I would say this meets the first objective. There's a likelihood of growth in this area based on the development that has already occurred, and annexation is in line with both the city and county comprehensive plans for the area, and the interlocal agreement has been thoroughly negotiated.
And then Allison?
Yeah, as stipulated here, I agree that it's met.
And Dave agrees that it's met. So then we'll go to the second batch of factors. It has to do with municipal services. And so met or not met?
I would say the municipal services does meet the requirement because Director Item actually did do a little presentations on the financial breakdown for us this evening. I do, however, made a request just to make that a little bit more accessible in your website or somehow for citizens to get access to it. But it did meet the requirement for the purposes of what I need today.
And Nicholas, we sort of skipped over you that time.
That's all right. Yes, I agree that that objective has been met or factor.
Okay. Kate?
I agree this has been met. I heard the opponent say that it has not been met because it's already well served or served well enough. I think this factor is looking forward to future development, and this area is going to be in need of sewer and water services as it develops, and the provision of those services is best met within the city. So therefore, I believe it's met.
Okay. And Allison?
I have a divided recommendation. Basically, in terms of municipal services as it's rendered to the existing city, it's being met. However, in dealing with the annexation, I think there's some more work to be done to reassure them that their needs are going to be met through the municipal service. And I think it's a partnership. And
Okay.
that's just a reaffirmation of a process that we have to make a decision, but I'd like to see that process, it building community. I mean, it's not just following the law.
And I concur with the other board members. It's been met.
Sorry, was that, just for clarification, was that that factor is met?
It's met with my qualification.
Okay. Number 3, the effect of the proposal on alternative or adjacent uses, on mutual economic and social interest, and on local government structure of the county. Nicholas?
I think especially with the county being a regional service provider and not necessarily wanting to continue to be the service provider for this area, I believe that it is furthered and that it is mutually it's economically and in the interest of the city and residents long-term to be annexed. So I'll say met.
Thank you. Grace?
And I see this in twofold. One of them, like Nicholas said, it's from the county to the city, that transition. That is definitely under the directives of the Urban Growth Management Act. So that does meet. The other part of that could be interpreted as Director Adam has said, when you have developers coming in, City of Snohomish right now has been a quote unquote placeholder for the municipal services, which is not the intent for the city. It's just that we don't know what the developers coming in and which water district services is going to take over. So with that second objective, that will be met too, as under the city's annexation, ensure that proper passed over for the continue with the utility services. So yes, that has been met.
Okay. Kate?
I think this criteria has been met. The local government structure of the county is best supported through the annexation area as outlined in the GMA and in the comprehensive plans of both the city and the county.
And Allison?
Yeah, I believe this third objective is, or factor is met primarily because of the partnership between the county and the cities, and they follow the plan, and then they work with the citizens.
Okay.
Those needs will be met, and the problems will eventually
And
work for enhancement.
Dave agrees with the rest of the board, so put me down as a met. Okay, so that is the end of our discussion on the factors. Okay, so our instructions here, after all the objectives and factors have been discussed, the chair will summarize the preliminary findings. The chair will ask board members if this reflects their assessment and whether they are comfortable making a motion. On approving the proposal, the chair will entertain the motion. So I'm going to go back and just briefly review on the objectives. We had a couple of them or three of them that we did not apply, and essentially everything else, the board rendered a decision that they further the objectives. And then we go to factors. Essentially, all of the factors were approved as being met. And as we recall at the beginning of the meeting, I read that our decision is limited to the factors and objectives. So that's where we are at this point in time. And so
as a board member, I move the proposal before this board be approved, the annexation proposal as presented.
Second.
okay, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded to approve the proposal before the board, and it's I think I know the word of the City of Snohomish North Lake Annexation, BRB file 2025-06. And so we have a motion to approve it. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'm in favor of the motion. I would like to just point out that in the BRB's purview, under 3693, 180, and 170, as we've discussed, those have been met. And there were a number of things that were brought up in the testimony through this case that are not in the purview of the Boundary Review Board. And so we are limited in what we can or cannot accept in the testimony in determining whether this annexation goes forward or not.
Yeah, and the discussions that I want to offer is the same thing, where it felt like the citizens I hear felt like the process of not being heard and their engagement doesn't have a lot of opportunity to participate. Unfortunately, with the 2020 amendment with the ILA, the state law did cut that process or minimize that process or streamline this process, however you wanted to say it. So it's not necessarily that the city's at fault, the county at fault, or the Boundary Review Board's purview to change that process. It's just that is the process. So it was being followed.
Kate, any comments?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, Allison?
Yeah, I think this particular hearing, I know it's tough for my fellow members. I've been the oldest board member on here. And it's much more unique this time around with ever changing on a statewide level. I think that we're making the right decision, but we're saying to you folks need to talk to each other to make it work out. And that's all I can say. It's
And also from the board's perspective here, this is the first time we've had a interlocal agreement hearing. So it's new for us also. And I would just like to add that we had the interlocal agreement, which has been a topic of discussion tonight. That was, written by the city and written by the county, and the attorneys on both sides all approved it. And so I'm going to assume that it's a valid interlocal agreement, and we're complying with the state law to go ahead and go with the interlocal agreement. Okay. So any more discussion? So let's go ahead and take a vote. Let's signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, and Dave votes aye. So we have a 5-0 vote. We had, 5-0. Or the vote was unanimous. So the board approval decision, based on the direction of the board, the clerk will prepare a resolution and hearing decision based upon the entire record, testimony, documents, exhibits. The board will meet on Thursday, January 29th at 6 p.m. in this same location to consider the resolution and vote on the adoption of a written decision. And all interested parties that are signed up, we have you as a party of record, will be notified of the time and location. And so I want to thank all of you that came tonight and took your evening to come and express your opinions and feelings to us. So tonight's hearing was recorded, and it will be posted on our website within 2 business days. And it's not only it's a visual and it's a web meeting type of thing. So both visual and verbal will be there. On behalf of the Boundary Review Board, I want to extend our sincere thanks to everyone who attended or participated in tonight's public hearing. And I also want to thank Allegra. Yeah, Allegra and I've gone brain dead. Yes, Sonia, for their beautiful help getting this whole thing together for us. And so the hearing is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I don't think I can do more than 2.5